McGinnis, welcoming you to another edition of the Sophie Scholl Society. The Equality Act, is it? Is the Equality Act recently passed by the House of Representatives an act of equality? If you scratch beneath the surface, if you look at it in depth, this Equality Act is an act of the totalitarian way, not the American way. Because the American way makes the citizen bigger and the government smaller. This Equality Act turns it upside down. What do I mean? Monica Burke, a research assistant for the Religion and Civil Society of the Heritage Foundation, wrote 7 reasons why the Equality Act is anything but. I will go over them briefly and illustrate how it makes government bigger and the citizen smaller rather than the opposite way, which is the American way. Here's reason number 1 why the Equality Act is anything but. It would penalize Americans who don't affirm new sexual norms and gender ideology, meaning a person who runs a business and does not comply with the government's imposition of what gender ideology should be and new sexual norms should be will come under penalty and compulsion. Number 2, it would compel speech. Yes, this Equality Act will compel speech, not letting speech be free. Free speech makes the citizen bigger and the government smaller. Example, Peter Fleming, who was a high school teacher, did not want to use male terminology to address a female student. No person should be put in that position where he's forced to do that, and yet government imposition here would require this teacher to line up with government-imposed speech. It would compel speech. That's not making the citizen bigger and the government smaller. You've seen 2 reasons so far. Here's the 3rd reason. It would shut down charities. You see, if a charity does not comply with this gender ideology and new sexual norms, it could put foster care in jeopardy. Catholic Social Services has already undergone that in the city of Philadelphia. This would federalize it so that foster children throughout the United States may be in a position where they cannot receive the help they need because a Catholic charity or a Protestant charity or any charity that does not want to comply with the government's new sexual norms and gender ideology would be shut down. Reason number 4 why this Equality Act is anything but. It would allow more biological males to defeat girls in sports. We've already seen this in the state of Connecticut. In the 100-meter dash, a biological boy competed in the girls' 100-meter and beat the girls. You see that this puts a girl in an unfair disadvantage. This disadvantage allows males, if they want to identify as a female, to dominate a sport. You see, this Equality Act is anything but. It would allow more biological males to defeat girls in sports. Number 5, it could be used to coerce medical professionals. You see, the Obama administration tried to coerce medical professionals into offering transition-affirming therapies through a regulation in the Affordable Care Act, popularly known as Obamacare. However, the move was stopped at the 11th hour by a judge. That could be totally reversed if this Equality Act, which has been passed in the House of Representatives, is passed in the Senate and signed into law by the President. We think, though, this will not get by the Senate, and certainly the President wouldn't sign on to this, but it lets you know that there are Democrats, there is the left that wants to make government bigger and the citizen smaller, by coercing medical professionals to conform to new sexual norms and gender ideology. Number 6, it could lead more parents into losing custody of their children. Meaning, if a child says, I want to transition, the state would have more say than the parents. We need to affirm the family. The power belongs in the home, but this legislation would make the family smaller and the government bigger, putting the control of the children more into the government rather than the parents. This federalizing of gender equality would put parents into a very difficult situation to the point of even losing their children. Number 7, it would enable sexual assault. Here's an example. A complaint under investigation by federal education officials alleged that a boy identifies as gender fluid at Oakhurst Elementary School in Decatur, Georgia. He sexually assaulted Pasha Thomas's 5-year-old daughter in a girl's restroom. The boy had access to the girls' restroom because of Decatur City's gender or transgender restroom policy. This would become federalized if the Equality Act were to pass and become law. You see, it would enable sexual assault. Does this make the citizen bigger? Does this protect the citizen? We see that this gender or this Equality Act is anything but, like Monica Burke has written in her article that says 7 reasons why the Equality Act is anything but. I thought our Congressman Tom Reed would never sign on to this. He did. Supposedly, he is Republican and conservative, but along with a couple other Republicans, he signed on to this bill from the left to make government bigger and the citizens smaller. He signed on to a bill that the federal government ought to have nothing to do with. The Constitution authorizes no such power to the Congress to talk about subjects like gender identity and new sexual norms. When we see what our nation is about, our declaration says that we're a nation founded on nature's law or nature's God and the laws of nature. Anything that's inconsistent with Scripture, as William Blackstone articulated with respect to natural law, should be no law at all. This Equality Act is from a Marxist perspective, postmodern to the greatest degree. It is not consistent with the laws of nature and nature's God and should thus be rejected. Here's my mistake. I never called Congressman Reed because I thought, hey, he'll never vote for this piece of legislation. But he did. It reminds me we as citizens have got to be on the alert and aware so that when we see legislation such as the Equality Act, we want to be very prompt in responding in the right way, the American way, the constitutional way, the godly way. Thank you for joining me once again on another edition of the Sophie Scholl Society.